All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. I want to remind you folks, this show does not run on freedom fumes alone. So if you're watching me on Rumble, smash that green $ during the show to drop me a Rumble rant. It's kind of like tossing good old dad a cold one. It keeps the vibes high and the mics on. If you want to go all in, well, click subscribe for just $5 a month. Your support helps me fight the good fight. What do we have for you today? Before we get into that, let's talk announcements. Tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to have on Tyler Yonke out of, I think that's how you say his name, Tyler Yonke out of California. He's been on the show before. I meant to look up the episode number, but I forgot. He's been on the show on Dad Talk before to talk just as a dad. It was a great conversation. He's joining me again tonight to discuss this viral video of a mother beating her 12-year-old child. Now, she has since been arrested. And I initially was going to talk about it this morning on the show, but I had this idea. I was like, well, Tyler is a family, he practices family law. So this is kind of something that's right up his alley. He probably has seen similar situations to this on more than one occasion. So I thought, I think it'd be great to balance out my perspective as a dad, bring on a fellow dad who also happens to be a lawyer who practices family law, and then we can have a fuller conversation about this. So tonight, we're going to have a conversation about this 12-year-old child getting, I don't mean to laugh, so I apologize, because I do believe it is abuse. Like, if you've seen the video and you're like, DL, are you supporting it? The answer is no. Okay? So I think we're going to have a good conversation. Look forward to that tonight, 6:30 p.m. Monday and Tuesday of next week, I will be streaming but then I'm going to take the rest of the week off for Thanksgiving. So no shows Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of next week. Just so you know, keeping you aware. Then look forward to December 3rd. I'm going to bring on my new guest host, Christina Lucas. We're going to do a series called Human Frequency. We're going to try to bridge the gap that I see, that she sees, between politics and culture and emotional intelligence, lived experience, and rational insight. Like, that's what she's kind of bringing to the table. Now, you might say, well, DL, don't you do that? Yes, through my libertarian lens. She's going to bring it in through her lens, which is maybe not grounded in a political philosophy. So I think this is going to be the start of some great conversations between the both of us. Then, yeah, we're not done, folks. Then on December 8th at 8 p.m., that will be the start of my monthly Dad Talk Roundtable. I'm getting dads together to have a monthly discussion on various topics from the perspective of a man, husband, and a father, or a father, right? Depending on the topic. Like, the topic may be that, maybe we talk about it just as men. This is what we think a good man would do, should do, shouldn't do, whatever. Maybe we talk about it from the perspective of a husband, or maybe we talk about it from the perspective of a father, or some combination of the three. So I think that's going to be fun. Hopefully that brings a new, fresh voice to the table. Just men getting together, not necessarily libertarians or conservatives, Republicans, whatever. None of that. Where we're setting politics aside, and we're just going to have more of a cultural conversation. I've got two guys lined up to do it semi-regularly. I'm looking for probably one or two more, and possibly we'll rotate out one or two of them. But we're going to do this on a monthly basis. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So look forward to that. Speaking of getting away from politics, today is Dad Talk Friday. What that means is that we get away from talking about politics, and I tell you something myself from the perspective of either a man, a husband, or a father. So this is kind of like me doing it solo. So we're going to have the monthly roundtable, and the hopefully the goal of that will be to do basically what I'm doing today, but more as a roundtable group and get some various perspectives. But until then, I'm going to be doing it solo, so that's what I've got today. We're going to talk about Andrew Wilson. But now, I know, he's a contentious individual out there, right? Like, he's fiery sometimes, and I'm not particularly a fan. So he had this debate with somebody named Charlie. I don't know her last name. As far as I could tell, she only goes by the name Charlie publicly, and that's fine. And she's apparently a feminist. And they were on the Whatever podcast. Now, they were on that show for 6 hours. It's a 6 hour. I didn't watch the whole thing, I promise. I watched some of it. The part that I'm going to talk about today, there's a viral clip going around where it looks really bad on Andrew. And it is. However, there's more to it. And we're going to discuss that. And I'm going to kind of give you some of my thoughts on how we engage with each other and some of the conversation that was had between these two. Like, where do I agree? Where do I disagree? What I'm going to be talking about is not really the substance of their argument so much. Okay, so I'm not really going to say, like, oh, I think they were making a good point here. This person was making a good point there. Some of that will come through anyway, but that's not really the point. The point is really to kind of talk about this overall and just how we engage with each other. Because that's kind of the point of the show. That's my goal, is to try to always engage with the maximum level of good faith that I possibly can, and to try to dial it down. Now, we all get passionate about things, and sometimes, we lose our cool, and we say something that maybe we could have said better, or maybe that we don't even mean. It happens. But that's the point of the show. We keep you fall down so that you can get back up, right? A little Batman going on. So let me tell you a little story real quick before we get into this video. When I was in about 7th grade, I think it was 7th grade, might have been 6th or 8th. I was in middle school. I attended Our Lady of Mercy. It was a Catholic elementary and middle school out in Dayton, Ohio. And many of the kids, there was this like main street that we all walked down, and you could just like after school, you could just see just kid after group after group after group after group, right? And so we all would walk down this, and then as you were walking down this long street, there would be side streets, which some of the kids would cut off, and some of the houses, some of the kids lived on that same street, and then other kids went all the way through to the major road after that, and then went their separate ways and kind of like spread out. And so I don't really recall what led up to this particular moment, like why I was being such an ass, but I was. So I'm walking beside this girl, and I'm insulting her. I'm saying mean things to her, okay? And as you might expect, the insults for a middle school student, they were pretty foul, right? It wasn't like, hey, you dumb, right? Like it wasn't the generous insults. It was pretty mean. And suddenly, somewhat without warning, she turned to me, started screaming at me, and then put her fist right into my stomach, knocking the wind right out of me. I was like, right? And that was that. Lesson learned. Well, sort of. I mean, I think it was a few more years before I learned to stop running my mouth. I think I had to get into a few more fights and, altercations and whatnot. In fact, I think that one that I just told you, I think that one preceded actually getting beat up by a kid. I can't remember the order. I'm pretty sure the story I just told you came first. And if it doesn't matter. I was a slow learner. But there was another story where there was a kid, I think we all believed that he came from California. So this was like back in the 90s, early 90s. So it was like, ooh, he's from California. He surfs. He does all this cool California stuff, right? And he's got he had this blonde hair that kind of flipped over to the side of his head, which would look pretty foolish now. Like people today would look at that and be like, that's not cool. But back then, like he had the cool hair. And he skateboarded. So I was living in Indiana, or not Indiana, but Ohio, in the Midwest. Skateboarding wasn't really a big thing quite yet. It was starting to pick up, but it wasn't quite the big thing. So he had a skateboard. He had the cool hair. He was blonde. He came from California. Like, yeah, he was a pretty cool kid. And for whatever reason, we had some beef. I probably started it. I don't know. I really don't. And at one point, he was like, he got tired of it. He's like, look, we're going to meet at the park and we're going to have this fight and we're going to duke it out. I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And that's what we did. Like, I don't know if you're younger and you're like, what is it? There was a thing back in my day. Oh my God, I just said it. I'm old. No. Oh no. What is that? I'm so old. Anyway, I just said back in my day. All right, when I was younger, which is just a nicer way of saying it, we had this thing with the saying, like, meet you at the pole. Not the prayer one. There was like the prayer one, but there was also I'll meet you outside at the flagpole. It's like a designated place to go and fight somebody. 3:00, whatever time you. And so we had determined that we were going to meet after school at the park, which as you go down the street that I was telling you about, you go down the street about halfway between the school and the next major road. On that street, there was a park. And so that's where we'd meet. And so we met there, and he pushed me, and I laughed at him. I wasn't really taking this serious. And then I think I ended up tripping on something and fell back. And that was the end of that. Like, that was the moment that I really lost the fight. Probably the moment that I actually lost it was when I showed up not expecting to actually have to physically fight somebody. I was a slow learner. I'm just saying. So there I am. I'm on the ground. He comes over, and he's trying to punch at me, and I kick at him, and I'm on the ground. There's nothing I could do. Like, I'm not Gracie, okay? Like, I'm not able to get out of this being on the ground. I mean, I'm like in 7th grade or so. I have no training, no skills whatsoever. So at one point, when he's basically done with the fight, he comes over and just starts kicking me in the ribs. I think it was the left side. He starts kicking me in the ribs, just kicking and kicking and kicking. And I'm just getting blasted. I'm like, like a little rag doll just being kicked, And then finally, he reminded me why I was down there getting kicked. He said, "This one is for skater fag," which I think I called him. And then he just blasted me with one nice, good kick. So there I am, crying, like, and I go home. My mom's like, "What happened?" I got my ass beat. Right? That's basically what it was. So yeah, I was a little slow learner with running my mouth. And I think that's important because, there's this quote from Mike Tyson, and I put it up on the screen, but I don't think I have it quite ready. Or maybe I can. I don't know. But I'll just tell you about it. So there's this quote from Mike Tyson that I really love. He says, "Social media made you all way too comfortable with disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face for it." And I think unfortunately, we're getting to a place where we're not getting punched in the face enough for some of the things that we say or the way that we treat people. Now, this is not me leading into somebody should go beat up Andrew Wilson. Okay. So if that's your takeaway, you're wrong. Quite wrong. That is not my takeaway. That is not the takeaway from this. I'm just pointing out that I think we are becoming a little bit too comfortable with insulting people, and there's no repercussion for that. And since violence is generally not on the table, that generally means we're going to engage in verbal fighting. And that can get pretty nasty. And that can go places that we might not like it to go. So we have basically three choices. We can take a swing at somebody physically. We can take a swing at somebody verbally. And I want you to think about this. If I take a swing at you, I'm trying to hurt you, trying to punch you, right? I want to maybe black your eye. I want to dot your nose, okay? I'm not just trying to take a swing just to scare you. I'm trying to hurt you. So if I don't do that and I resort to a verbal swing, I'm also trying to hurt you. I'm trying to be mean, whether I admit it or not. Then there's a third option. We could just simply learn to have good faith debates. And I've been critical of Andrew in the past because I don't think that he necessarily debates in good faith. And perhaps it's just you could call it my misunderstanding of the blood sport debate scene, if you will. I don't think it's a misunderstanding. I'm not particularly a fan of just ruthlessly trying to beat somebody down verbally and haha, I won. I don't think that's really useful. And the debates that I've seen from Andrew, I don't walk away saying, wow, I feel more enlightened by it. I walk away either saying it's just as it says, blood sports, right? I walk away the same way that I might walk away from a boxing match or a UFC fight. I just walk away and I'm like, yeah, did you see how he punched it? And then he did this, and then that one moment, and then he got him on the ground, right? That's how I look at it. But if we're trading ideas and we're trying to bring the best ideas to the table, I don't think it's really doing it. So this clip I have today, it is of Andrew Wilson, and he's basically getting gut punched by a female opponent who goes by the name of Charlie. Now it went viral, and a lot of people were like, "Well, he got smoked, blah blah," and they're really dogging on him, and to some degree he deserves it. Okay, but I want to discuss this from the perspective of a man and a father. So we're going to get into that. Before I play this clip, though, a couple forewarnings. Number one, it's relatively long. It's like 6 minutes long. And again, it's out of a 6-hour video, so I don't think it's really too terribly long in that respect. The reason I did this is because there's a lot that I want to kind of cover. And a lot of time when you get a clip on the internet, it shows you just the juicy part. It doesn't really show you what came before, what came after, right? There's context that's missing. Now, sometimes the context doesn't add any value. In many cases, it does. So in this particular case, I think for what I'm talking about today, it will add value, the context before and after. So I'm going to play this. The other thing I want to point out is there is a lot of profanity in this. I generally try to keep the show family friendly. It's not always possible either because the topic is sensitive, the clips that I have profanity, or I myself am getting a little bit rowdy. Okay, well, the last one is all on me. And I am dialing it back for you folks out there so you can have a nice family-friendly show and still learn a lot. Now, you might ask yourself, why did I not censor the profanity? You know, like half the albums that I listened to as a child or a teenager, I guess. Well, everyone knows that the beep disrupts the flow. Sometimes there's just too much of it. And honestly, we're all adults here. You know, and if I put in the additional work, it would really only be for unnecessary nostalgia. I'm not really adding any value by beeping it out or silencing it. And it's just, sometimes there's a lot of it, and it's kind of pointless. So if you have children present, I'm giving you forewarning, there's going to be some profanity in this clip that we play. So with that being said, let's get into the clip. We'll go over here to Dad TV. You know, I was thinking to put it up on the full screen, but I'm just going to do Dad TV only because I don't know if YouTube will flag this and be like, you are using content that you don't, whatever. So to avoid that, we'll just use Dad TV. All right, so let's play this clip. Enough talk. And I might have to adjust it a little bit.
You can't have the state charging the executive branch. You can't have them doing that.
I think you can.
No, well, not only can you not, the Supreme Court even ruled you can't.
I think.
Okay. So I just want to interrupt here really quickly. This is preceding what started everything, because you know a lot of people, they see something like, well, what happened before that? This is what happened before that. So it's generally just some disagreement on how the government should operate. We're not going to talk about that. I'm only left it in so that you understand the context for what happens here in just a moment.
You should be able to. I think that's ridiculous. I think we need to be able to hold our leaders accountable and not put too much power in their hands, because I am against authoritarianism.
Okay, so let's say California does that. They say, hey, we're going to go ahead and bring up Donald Trump and he needs to appear in court. How does California enforce that?
In this day and age, I don't know. That gets tricky. I wouldn't trust Donald Trump to.
Are they going to send California agents to arrest the President of the United States, do you think?
We could send the National Guard and start a civil war. Our National Guard, the California National Guard. But that would be treason.
So I'll try to rephrase this. I'm going to reframe, and I'm just going to be totally honest with you. I will never be able to convince you of my worldview.
You won't.
Okay. This is where the juiciness starts. Okay, so you heard what was preceding. They were just having a disagreement on the nature of how the government could be used. And then they go into, all right, I'm not going to be able to convince you of my worldview. And then she confirms it. Here's where it gets juicy.
I know. But the reason is not because I'm not a great orator, or I don't make good points, or I haven't said things which should be compelling to a person. But Charlie, I just think, honestly, you're too fucking stupid to understand them.
Okay. I'm going to stop it right here. This was his first mistake. This was basically me yelling at a girl walking down the street, right? Effectively. That's basically what it is. Now, here's the thing about this that I find really interesting is that Andrew seems to have a very low opinion of many of the women that he debates. Now, perhaps he's just getting a bunch of dumb women. That's possible, right? Perhaps that's what's going on. But if that's the case, why is he spending so much time with them? Like, I'm not moved by this idea of, well, I'm not going to convince this person because they're beneath me in their intellect. And then you spend 6 hours on a podcast with them. Repeatedly do this. You know, you do it with this one, you do it with that one, and you seem to always be okay with, well, I'm going to spend my time, which you can do it however you want, but I'm being critical. I'm going to spend my time. The value of my time is worth communicating for 6 hours with somebody that I don't believe that I'm going to communicate because I'm just too smart for them. That seems kind of pointless to me. I don't see any value in that kind of attitude. And that's what he's basically doing. So let's continue, because let's hear how she responds.
So, Andrew, can I sell you on my worldview?
Yes.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you
Okay. She's taken her swing. She brought his wife into this. And this is where I defend Andrew a little bit, because on one hand, I think he could be verbally abusive. Maybe not in any way you frame that. You'll see in a minute. Verbally abusive, not only in the words that he chooses to use towards people, opponents that he has no respect for, but also in the way that he debates. I think he tends to steamroll over his opponents, and that is part of what makes him, quote unquote, successful. It's almost like you take an opponent that perhaps you have a particular move that people are unfamiliar with, or they're just not able to counter. And then you perhaps are debating people who are maybe at not your skill level, right? So now you have a move that you're just really good at using. They're not in general as skilled as you are, which she acknowledges here in a few moments. And then you back them into a corner and you just keep doing this move. And then you're like, see, I won. And it's like, well, yeah, it's like I could win too if I beat up on children. And I'm not calling Charlie a child. I'm just kind of using this as an analogy to make the point. Like, I think there is a disparity between him and many of his opponents. And he uses that to his advantage just to beat up on them and win. Because I've seen multiple videos of him doing this very thing. And I say, like, bunches of clips, many clips, and I've seen several of his debates where that is what he does. So she is now thrown down the gauntlet. She's hitting him below the belt. She brought his wife into it, his family life, which was not part of the conversation. Okay? The conversation was, how should we use government? Then it goes into, I just think you're too stupid to be able to comprehend the really brilliant things that I'm saying that any normal person would see is totally brilliant. I think there's a little bit of ego there, a little bit of arrogance. And that's okay. Anybody that's willing to get up on a podcast or talk publicly, they have a little bit of ego. I've already acknowledged this. Charlie has some ego as well. If she is willing to get on a show and have a 6-hour debate with somebody, she clearly assumes that she has something worth saying that people are going to want to listen to, etc. So we all have egos. Okay, but this is like major ego right here. So she digs in on his wife, which has nothing to do with the conversation, but it supposedly has something to do with her worldview. So she's trying to bring something personal of his into the conversation so that she can hopefully sell him on her worldview. I think this was, in one way, it was basically him getting pummeled a little bit. Like, it was like the girl that punched me in the gut, right? She just did a gut punch. And you'll see in a moment he doesn't take well to it. On the other hand, I'll say she makes a mistake here by dragging his family into it. Not only dragging the family into it, but in the way that she did it. So let's continue.
Sniz.
Under your religion.
You lick sniz.
What is that?
You're a fucking dyke. Don't talk shit about my wife, you stupid bitch. Shut your fucking mouth. Shut your stupid bitch mouth.
Your wife with the 3 baby
What did I just say? Dyke?
Your wife with the 3 baby daddies?
I'm sorry, dyke. Is she morally inconsequential in comparison to your ditch licking?
Do the men that you try to...
Do the women that you try to...
your hatred against...
Do the women that you try to...
them that they shouldn't...
You know, Charlie, did I bring...
Women? Do they know
Charlie,
that
did I bring your family?
5 years older?
Did I bring any of your family into anything?
Stupid.
Did I say anything about your family being stupid, Charlie?
You could.
It's
you
because
could
I'm better than you, Charlie.
No, it's because you're embarrassed, and you know that the traditional...
Okay. I think she did get under his skin. I think she did embarrass him. Now, he could deny it. He could come on the show, or he could, do a response or whatever, and he would probably deny and say, no, I wasn't embarrassed. I was irritated, whatever. I think he was embarrassed. Here's why. And we're going to see this. Number one, he immediately launches at the insults, a lot of them. It's a barrage of insults. And she's cool about it. She's like, yeah. She repeats it. She's like, yeah, your wife with the 3 baby daddies and whatever. And she's like, I don't think that she starts talking about his Christianity. She just is cool, calm, and collective, and she keeps going. She does not respond to his barrage of insults. She doesn't get flustered. And the reason I say that I think it doesn't work is because I've watched other debates and other clips where he does that, and then the women get a little flustered, and they're no longer able to try to continue on with their point. So here's where I think he basically loses this round, if you will, or this little skirmish, in a sense, because he initially is like, yeah, you're not going to talk about my wife. You're not going to talk about my family. She's patient. She's chill about it. She keeps going, and then watch what he does.
Values that you try to sell people on are bullshit because you are not a traditional man.
Chuck, let's go through it.
You are not a traditional.
There it is. Do you see it? Initially, it was, hey, don't you talk about my wife. You keep my family out. Did I insult you like that? He didn't insult her family, but he insulted her. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, when you're debating a topic, and their debate topic was like feminism, when you're debating a topic, when you start taking low blows like that, whether it's the person or the family, kind of really doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter much. Now if you insult me, I'll probably be fine with that. If you insult my wife, I would probably have a similar anger that Andrew had. Hopefully, I would maintain my cool. I would like to think I would, but I've not been in that situation, so I don't know. Okay, and I know there's a lot of chatter about, like, the internet. They love to argue about stepdads and dad. Like, that's a big thing. I've criticized a lot of people over this. As far as I'm concerned, Andrew is, without knowing his family life, assuming good faith on his family life, I will say he is a good man, not because, hey, I went and I found some wife, that has children. He's a good man because he didn't keep that off the table. In other words, he met a person and they decided they liked each other, and he didn't let that get in the way of a potentially good relationship. So in that particular sense, I will say he's a good man. Now, if there's some information comes to light that shows otherwise, fine, we'll deal with that. But from what I can see, I will give him plenty of kudos, because I think any man that works to have a good relationship with another woman is in general a good thing. The circumstances, how that happened, some of the details, perhaps we could have a conversation if that's the thing, but I don't really care about them, especially if they're long ago, which is my understanding. My understanding is whatever circumstances might present some immoral some judgment about immorality, they are long since in the past. And I don't drag up someone's past so long as it appears that their past is just that, in the past. So let's continue.
Let's go through it, Chuck. Tell me what I'm doing which is immoral.
What you're doing which is immoral?
Yeah.
I think that you have been complicit.
Okay, so I think she makes a mistake here. So what Andrew loves doing, he loves asking people questions, which is not a bad thing. Socratic method, right? I think he uses that as leverage. I don't think he uses that as good faith, like, all right, I'm really interested in what your opinion is, and we're going to see where this conversation goes. I don't feel like that's how he uses it. I think he uses that as a tactic to win. He just asks a lot of questions like, well, okay, why about this? What about this? The questions aren't earnest. They're not because he's curious. They're not because he's trying to get to a deeper understanding or show the person, hey, you have some interesting ideas. However, if we dig in a little bit, we find out that there are some serious problems with it. That's not my impression that I get from him. My impression is that he is that is his tool. When I was talking earlier about, you've got this trick that you use, or this move that you use, that's his move. Socratic method, questioning. And it works pretty well, even here, because he's like, tell me what I'm doing that's immoral. But that doesn't appear to be what she was actually aiming for in the first place. And we'll see this in a moment, because she does try to go on and explain herself, but I think she landed a nice blow, but then he recovered, and then, much to the dismay of the internet, while they thought, oh, she really got him, she destroyed him, after the fact, after he got back up, recovered, I think he starts to basically turn the tables. So listen.
in convincing young men that...
No. My family dynamic. What am I doing? Being married to my wife.
It's immoral.
Then why? So then,
under my
so
worldview,
all you did.
That's perfectly
So wait,
acceptable.
Chuck.
Okay, so you see the mistake that she made? She was like, she initially, earlier, she said, let me convince you of my worldview. Then she led with, here is this negative thing about you. That has nothing to do with your worldview. She did it backwards, cart before the horse. Because now she's stuck defending, bringing up his family. Now she's stuck, like we haven't figured out what it is about his family that's connected to her worldview, which means he can ask questions in such a way that he can basically assume what's her intent. And then she has to fend off those attacks. And that's exactly what she's doing. She's like, whoa, wait a minute. In my worldview, you can do this. Okay, well, that makes the immediate question. Why did you bring it up? If you're talking about your worldview, why did you bring up my personal family life when under your worldview, it would have been okay? And so she doesn't get an opportunity to say, my worldview says this, your worldview says this, and this is where she's going, basically. She's going with, under her worldview, the way that he lives and the choices that he has made are perfectly acceptable. She then tries to point out, under his worldview, they are not. That's her assertion, not mine. And so in this, she is making an assertion that she hasn't had him validate. So she's went about this all wrong, and his questions now are now going to put him in a better place.
All you're doing is saying, so Chuck, shouldn't you actually be saying that, Andrew, you're doing a good thing? Hang on, Charlie, I just want to make sure I got this right. Am I doing a good thing?
You see what happened here? He's now asked another question. Am I doing a good thing by, and he'll mention it in a moment, am I doing a good thing by raising children that are not mine? Right? So he now holds the cards in his hand because of the way that she went about this.
Am I doing a good thing?
Do you think your wife is a charity case?
By taking care of children who weren't mine? Was I doing a good thing? Whose fathers abandoned them? Was I doing a good thing?
Yeah, you're doing a good thing.
Oh, okay. Well then, Chuck, why did you use that as a form of personal attack on me? Even though you think I'm a good person doing a good thing.
I'm convincing you of my worldview.
Okay, she's not. Actually, let's play his response here to that.
You're very convincing, Chuck.
Okay, so again, he's right. She's not being very convincing because of the way that she went about this. And we're going to tie this into dad and father and all that good stuff here in just a moment, so bear with me, folks.
My worldview.
I'm a good person.
You can marry your wife and no one would judge you, and you can raise the children that aren't yours and no one would judge you.
No, they would still judge me, Chuck.
Under your worldview, that would not be so. Christian nationalists.
Yeah, what about it?
Isn't even acceptable.
Do you understand?
So now we start to see where she was trying to go with this. She's like, under your worldview, Christian nationalism, the choices that you have made would not be permissible. Under her worldview, they would be. That's the whole point that she was trying to make. However, she led with your family, your wife. You have multiple children. What she should have said is, she should have led with, my worldview is superior to yours because my worldview is more permissible of the decisions that you have made in your life than your worldview. Now, again, this is assuming that she has his worldview correct, which it doesn't seem like she does. Let's continue.
What Christianity is? Do you think that?
I was raised Christian. Were you?
Yeah, I was.
Protestant.
Yes, I was.
Of course. See, this is.
You don't. I'm sorry.
Because the Protestant spirit is still in you.
Oh.
I don't even know what that means.
It hasn't left, man.
Is the Catholic spirit still in you?
I wasn't raised Catholic.
Then what are you talking about?
I was raised Protestant.
Okay, you were raised Protestant?
Yeah.
So why would you fucking criticize me for that?
It's the thing that Protestants do when they convert to like Orthodox or Catholic is they get really into the idea of like.
Hey Chuck, can I ask you?
They get really into the idea of rules and
Chuck,
shit.
have you ever had an abortion?
No.
Never? Would you?
Yeah.
So you'd kill your own kids? Why am I going to take moral advice from you?
You don't have to.
I'm not going to.
Why would I take moral advice from you?
So you're trying.
I think that you lie about your worldview.
Okay, which part am I lying about?
I think that you pretend to be a traditional Christian man, but what I see
never said once that I'm a traditionalist.
What I see you doing as someone who claims to be a Christian is spreading hate.
Okay.
I think that you.
All right, Chuck. Fine. See, you got me. You got me. I'm a stepfather, Chuck. What did I do wrong?
Do you see how he now has control of the table, if you will? He has control because she led with an insult about his family, about his family life, rather than setting the stage to bring that in a proper manner, rather than saying, my worldview is more permissible of your own decisions than your worldview. The first thing she should have done was make sure she understood what his worldview was, what his view as a religious person is, as it relates to some of the decisions that he's made. So she doesn't have to, she can set this up more, she could set it up better. And she could have said, well, in your worldview, is divorce acceptable? Is this acceptable? She could have just kind of, without bringing his family into it, and she could have just laid the foundation and said, all right, let's get some understanding so that he has now said, this is what my worldview is. Then she could say, my worldview is superior to yours because my worldview is more permissible of the things you just agreed to or disagreed or whatever, right? My worldview is more permissible than your worldview. And now let's bring this in. Let's talk about your family dynamics. Now, I still think it's a bad idea. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Let's finish this clip.
What did I even do wrong from my Christian worldview, Chuck, by being a stepfather and a good father to kids who needed one, Chuck? Can you tell me?
That's not what I was referring
to. No, it was what you were referring
because
to.
Being a stepfather
you were trying
is Christ-like.
to. What you were trying to do.
But Christian nationalists are not Christ-like. You are
Chuck,
not
what am I saying? What am I doing? What am I doing except taking care of people?
What you're doing is you are espousing to be a good Christian man, but what you do with your life is you don't help others. You sit around smoking cigarettes.
I thought I did. I thought you just commended.
Okay, so she's really backed herself into a corner at this point. Okay? And she has done so because her whole point really was not about his family life. It was about, hey, you smoke cigarettes. Presumably she finds that to be incompatible with Christianity. So she's like, you smoke cigarettes and then you sit around and you debate and you insult people and you don't help them. Right? Well, if that was her point, then she should have then, in her worldview, would offer something better. Then that's the angle that she should have went with, but she didn't. So let's continue.
Did me for helping others. Didn't I help children who weren't even mine, Chuck?
That's not what you do with your life.
Yes, it was what I did with my whole young life, my entire youth.
Your job is debating women who aren't formal debaters and literally mocking young women in
Chuck,
sex
do I only
That's
debate?
What you do.
Do I only debate women, or do I debate the best debaters in the world?
You sometimes do.
Yeah, so shut up.
If they let you.
And what have you? And what have you done? What have you done?
I have a master's.
Yeah, you haven't done shit. You don't have a family. You've never taken care of another human being besides yourself. And on top of that, let's just point this out. You have not debated with those people because they think you're too fucking stupid to do so.
All right. Whew. That was a lot. I did watch more of that. I just didn't watch the whole 6 hours. I don't have 6 hours to watch somebody debate. That's insane. Like, what are you people doing for real? 6 hours? That's insane. Like, if whatever ever calls me, if they ever reached out and they were like, DL, we want you to be on a 6 hour podcast, I would really have to think about that. Not because of like, oh, I can't be bothered, I'm too good for this show. None of that. I just would be like, man, 6 hours on a microphone? That's a long time. That's insane. You people are intense. And look, my own peers do it. Libertarians do it as well, right? Like we're watching right now Dave Smith get beat up by some of the more the people, the anarchists who are really focused on principles. And I just recently saw that apparently my friend Jacob Winograd, he had Dave on to kind of discuss some of the controversy. They just had a conversation for like 2 hours. Okay, no big deal. But then in a response video, this guy that's been hounding him, Zulu, did a 4-hour video. Like, do you people not have lives that you can, and I know I'm being a little bit punchy here, but really 4 hours in one sitting? That's just crazy. 6 hours? Like, if it's a special thing and you're like, because I've done very long podcast episodes. I've done long streams. I have done that. But I've done it like once. And it was a very special occasion. We were trying to raise money for candidates running here locally in Jacksonville. So we had like this 4-hour stream. And that was exhausting. And I had other people come on to help out. Like, that was intense. So anyway, I think I would turn that down if they said 6 hours. Like 2 hours, okay, I'll do a 2-hour show. But I would not do 6 hours. That's just crazy. So let's bring this back. Let's talk about this. So here, the problem that I have, number one, with Andrew, and I've had this problem, and I've not been shy about mentioning this, and I would hold fast to this. I think he's abusive to people. I think also in one of my past episodes, I talked about it. I said, it was on the conversation of age gap relationships. It seems to me that he does kind of what Ben Shapiro is known for: go to college campuses and beat up on college kids that really haven't had the opportunity, the time to put in to build the skill to debate somebody, right? And so we see all these video clips of Ben Shapiro dunking on a college kid. And once upon a time, I thought that was great. I was like, oh man, this dude, he's just whooping upon. But then I got a little older and I realized, yeah, that's not really that impressive. Like, if you've got the chops for something, if you've developed a particular skill in an area, specifically the area of debate, and then you go and then you just dunk on people who don't have that skill, don't even come close to having that skill, that's not impressive. Nor does it add to our knowledge base as humans, right? Because if you're, think of it this way, if you're more skilled at debate, you could have the wrong idea or a bad idea and then simply outmatch somebody who has a better idea. So it doesn't necessarily guarantee that the best ideas are getting to the forefront. Okay, you could make the argument that it does, but if you're constantly battling with people that are half your skill or less, and it's clear that she is not as skilled as him, and for many reasons that I pointed out, she clearly led in with the wrong thing. She brought up his family, which is a sore point. She brought up his family when she actually had some other point that she really wanted to make, but she was going to try to go a roundabout. So that didn't work. Now, had she brought up his family just as a single punch, she would have been like, yeah, let's talk about your wife real quick. Just to get under his skin, I would have been like, all right, that was a nice blow. It would have been a low blow, but I would have been like, you probably deserved it. Like once upon a time when I was yelling at a girl, saying mean things to her, and then she just quickly turned and punched me. Now, if that girl had continued hitting me and tried to, was going at me, there might have been a point in this altercation where I would have been able to turn the tables on her, because I am still a man, or I was a boy at the time, and I was physically stronger than she was, more than likely. Not a guarantee. Like, trust me, there's some badass girls out there, okay? So men, just be careful. I'm just saying, don't think just because you're a man that you can't be beat. Okay, there are women out there that are not. I have some friends that I would not quarrel with physically because they might knock me out. Like, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, most women that I know, I could physically overpower if this situation came to it. But I have a few friends where I am not overpowering in any sense, and they will knock me clean out. Okay? So let's just be clear. But anyway, to get back to the point here, the issue that I have with all of this debate, is that in this particular segment, this 6-minute segment, there was really nothing of value that came out of it, other than perhaps she got a low blow in. But she ruined that low blow with what came after. If that low blow had been intentional, just to throw him off his guard and then swing it back, I think she would have been better off if she just came back and said, okay, well, that has nothing to do with my worldview. I just needed you to be rattled a little bit. Are you ready now to actually have a real conversation, or would you like to keep going with insults? Because I can do that as well. Now, would that have worked? Perhaps not. She's still less skilled than he is. But I think this would have been a better way, knock your opponent off their balance intentionally, then bring it back. But only if you absolutely have to. As a rule of thumb, I would say you're better off just keeping your cool and not getting angry. Clearly, he lost his cool. Everybody agrees. He could deny it all he wants. We have eyes. We have ears. We saw it. He goes from you're effing stupid to don't you talk about my wife. Don't you talk. You're a this, you're a that, you're a this, you're a that. We all know we all know what that means. That means you got rattled. Now everybody out there knows we can rattle him by talking about his wife. Now, perhaps in the future, he'll be more prepared for it and it won't be as rattling. Perhaps it will. I don't know. I can't speak for him, and until it actually happens, we won't know for sure. But ultimately, as a dad looking at this, as a husband, I look at this and I say, this was not a constructive debate in this particular portion of it. Now, maybe elsewhere it was more constructive, but this was not. However, this happens to be Andrew's MO. And you could go and you can look at all the comments that people made on the very short clip, which only shows from him saying, I think you're stupid, to her basically getting insulted a whole bunch of times. It's like this short 30-second, maybe 1 minute clip that's out there. That's what's getting a lot of the attention. And a lot of the comments are out there like, yeah, this is Andrew's MO. He totally deserved it. That's what they're saying. And so what I would tell my son, I would say, like, look, when you're engaging with people, if it gets to the point that you're trading insults, then you've done something wrong. And what I would like to teach my son is, I would like to teach him, if you want to get into debate, that's cool. I think it's fun. I personally would like to get into some debates. In fact, I'll tell you this. If you guys want to start putting my name out there to debate people, go right ahead. Bring it on. Let's make it happen. I'll debate anybody. I'll lose some. I might even lose the first few. You got to earn your stripes. But I'm willing to go out there and debate people from a libertarian perspective, from a male perspective, from a dad perspective, from a husband perspective. I'm willing to have that debate. Now, don't tag me into like foreign policy or something that I don't really talk about. I talk about cultural issues and I talk about domestic policy. So if you see some domestic policy, if you see some cultural issues that you think I would be worthwhile having a conversation, being part of the conversation, tag me in. Tag me in, coach. I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's bring it. Anyway, to get back to my point, what I would like my son to do is when he grows up, if he decides that he wants to debate, I want him to be able to control the conversation, but not control it for the sake of dominating. Control the conversation for the sake of having a better conversation. Part of that means if somebody brings up something about your family, something personal to you, that you're able to keep your cool and you don't have to get into where you're trading blows. Now, it happens to be the case that in this instance, Andrew, in the longer version, I think he does kind of come out on top, sort of comes out on top, because she did land a low blow, and her low blow did not seem to be very intentional and very quick, and just this one, only if I have to, right? Like that would have been where she would have been way better off if she had done that. Because then he could have been like, well, what about my family? She could be like, yeah, I already told you. It wasn't really about your family. I just needed you to be thrown off. And clearly, you are now thrown off. So if you would like to dial it back down and stop with the insults, then we can continue on and have a conversation. But if not, then yes, we can continue on with the insults. I have plenty more where the first one came from, right? That would have been a way better method for her to handle the situation. But she ends up only looking bad because when you watch the longer clip, you see that really ended up not even being her point, or she deviated from her point. If you're going to bring up someone's personal life, it damn well better have a good purpose. It damn well better be something that, as the conversation continues, you can keep hold of, bring the conversation back and say, this is what I was trying to tell you. You got a little emotional, so it took us a while to get there, but here we are. Here I am telling you what you needed to know, why I think you're wrong on this particular issue. But I would actually argue and say, don't bring in people's personal, don't bring in their family members. You can bring in something personal to them, but don't bring in their family members. I just think that's inappropriate. And I think as a human species, we are intelligent enough to be able to have conversations, to argue it out, blood sport debate, without ever bringing in somebody's family. I absolutely oppose this. I have opposed this since I really started engaging in politics back when Obama was president, and people would bring up his daughters. And I was like, dude, why are you bringing his daughters into things? His daughters they were like teenagers or something, or maybe even adolescents. And I'm like, why are you bringing in his adolescent children? And I wasn't too fond of it when people did it to Bush Jr., and they would bring his daughters into it. Now, sometimes his daughters went out and did things and caused a bit of they got noticed by the media because of whatever they were doing. Maybe they went to a party and it got out of hand or whatever, right? So in that sense, it was a little bit more difficult to say leave his daughters out of it because they're basically making some noise. But I think even still, you're just better off leaving people's family out of it. Their family, like my wife has nothing to do with my opinions. She doesn't even agree with all of my opinions, nor should she necessarily, right? I wouldn't like that. But she doesn't agree with it. So if you were to bring my wife into it, if we were arguing and you're like bringing my wife into it, you might just be making a fool of your own self, because I would be like, well, my wife doesn't even agree with me on that, so why are you bringing her into this? Now, as for Andrew, I think he hopefully, I don't think so. I'm not really hopeful just based on what I've seen, but I hope that he will walk away from that exchange and say, I need to do better. I need to insult people less. Because I do think he's actually a smart guy. I'm not saying that he's a dumb guy. I just think that he's a bit on the abusive side when it comes to debate. And as somebody who's in the public sphere, who talks 5 days a week, who's willing to go and have debates with people, as somebody like that, that's not the kind of interaction that I would like to see more of. I would like to see more debates about everything. And I don't believe in this whole, you can't platform this person. If somebody's willing, if person A is willing to have person B on their show, then that's person A's show. End of story. Not much to talk about. Okay? I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more conversation, because I believe that is how we actually get to better ideas. But we don't get to better ideas just by ending up insulting each other. That doesn't make us look good. That doesn't make our ideas look good. In fact, let me tell you some of the things. And before I actually watched the longer clip, here is what I had said of Andrew myself. I said any proper man, especially Christian, would easily have handled that better, and I think so. If I was debating Charlie and she said, DL, here's something that I've learned from your history that maybe you're not too proud of, I wouldn't have gone in a rage and be like, you keep your effing, keep this effing out of your mouth. You are this and you're that. I don't need to resort to that. I would say, okay, if that's what you feel is needed to have a debate about your position, then fine. We'll talk about this as long as you feel is necessary. And I'm going to push you hard to make sure that you bring this as, you present the relevance of this that you're bringing up to the topic of conversation. And if you can't do that, then I'm going to point that out for everyone to see. I think he could have handled that way better. And he is more skilled. He said so. He said he has debated all the great debaters. I don't know if that's actually true or not, because I just keep seeing him with a bunch of 20-year-old women that don't seem to have the skills that he has. So I don't know where all these debates are happening, but I'm not seeing this, I've debated the best of the best. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe those ones are low-key and nobody cares about them. I don't really know. But that's not what I'm seeing, Andrew. Then I went on to say, I said, if Paleo Christcon, that's Andrew, is incapable of getting past the intellect level of his opponents, then he is neither making great points nor a great orator. So at one point he said that, he was not going to be able to change her mind because she was too stupid. And he said, it's not because I'm not making good points, not because I'm not a great orator. Actually, it is. He's wrong. Because if you are so intelligent, then you can break it down for even the least intelligent person to understand. They may not agree with you, but they'll understand. One of the things that I noticed when I first became a libertarian, and I would talk to my mother, and she was a diehard conservative Republican till the day she died. Actually, 10 years to the 9 years to the date just a few days ago. So anyway, one of the things I noticed is that I would have a conversation with her, and then I would say something that was insightful, and she would go, "That's a good point." She didn't agree with me, but she would have to concede it was a good point. That's it. That's how I knew I have said something useful. I have made a great point when my opponent says you've made a great point. And I think if Andrew Wilson is as intelligent as he believes himself to be, and which I think he's intelligent. We all have an inflated view of how intelligent we are, okay? But if he wants to be seen as intelligent as he believes, then intellect of his opponents is irrelevant. Because that means he would be intelligent enough to say, all right, this is how my opponent needs to hear this. I've debated, had conversations with people, and they're steeped in philosophical jargon. And you're like, I'm not really in that space. I don't know all the words that you're saying. Can you dumb it down for little old me? If they can't do that, what's the point of having all that knowledge? If you can't break it down in simple terms for somebody, what's the point of having? If you can only present your ideas in a sophisticated manner that only other sophisticated people will understand, what value are you? What value are you bringing? Think of it this way. Ask yourself, are most people what we might consider like Charlie's intellect? And I'm not trying to dog on her. Just say, would most people be at least her intellect or somewhere in the vicinity thereof? I would say probably so. Right? I didn't see anything from the video that I saw that showed me, that said she was way above average. And I'm not trying to dog on her. I'm just saying, I don't think she's a Bertrand Russell. Okay? I don't think she's a Christopher Hitchens. That's all I'm saying. These people were very intellectual, well above most everybody else. I didn't see her as that. I saw her as just like somebody like me or somebody else. Okay? And so I'm saying most people are probably within that range. So if Andrew can only talk to the elites, then how does change in this world ever actually happen? How? How can you change the world if you can only speak to the elite intellectuals, the intelligentsia? How? That's the whole nature of populism, right? Populism speaks to the people, which are going to be of average intelligence. And if that's stumping you, then no, you're not making great points, and you're not a great orator. Sorry. A great orator and somebody who makes great points speaks to the majority of the population. If they're going to say, I've got this idea that everybody should really consider and adopt. Otherwise, what's the point? You're only debating to hear yourself talk. That's really all it is. And then I also said this. I said, assuming true. So let me back up here. The tweet that I'm quoting here is from Arthur Kwan Lee. He said, this is the #1 debater in the red pill community, by the way. Now, I don't know if that's actually true or not. So this is what I said. Assuming true, it's no great feat to top the leaderboard when you're a knight whose armor outshines his wisdom, spending his days knocking down youthful squires with practiced tricks. So everything I said earlier, that's kind of like a summary of it. I think Andrew is basically a knight, not the knight in shining armor, something I'm just using an analogy, a metaphor here. He is a knight, and his armor is shinier than his actual wisdom. And so therefore, he seems to do best at beating down the squires. This is what I see. So if he wants to step it up, he's going to have to dial back all the insults. He's going to have to dial back his abusive use of the Socratic method and actually have real meaningful conversations and bring either the audience to a better understanding, including audience that's not already his own, but also at some point, the people that he debates, that they can walk away and say, man, that dude really made some great points. I'm going to have to really consider my position. So hopefully you found this informative and inspiring as you go about talking to people. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. In fact, speaking of the comments, let's go check out the live chat, see what you guys are saying. Shatter King says, with Charlie. I assume that just means that they're on Charlie's side. And that's fair. And to some degree, I am too. Like, I think she made a mistake. I think she erred in how she went about it. And perhaps she wasn't trying to be insulting per se. But I think the way that she went about it put her at a disadvantage in the long run. It was nice in the short run. And had it stayed a short run effort, then I think it would have been great. Just a 1-2 punch, move on. Right? Let's see here. Look at that. Look at that. My VA ladies give me a compliment. I need more of those in this chat, folks. The outline is much better on the thumbnail. I appreciate it. I tried. Did I even add a... Oh, no, I added a glow this time. So yesterday's thumbnail, I got a little bit of critique on it. Like, hey, the outline of the people was a little too thick. And so today, I actually went with a different method. And rather than having just a bold outline, I went with a glow instead. So maybe I'll do that in the future. See, folks, if you just chime in and you let me know how I'm doing in the comments, I will consider your perspectives and I'll be like, maybe I'll do that. Just got to get some feedback from you guys. That Liberty lady says, I could take DL. I used to fight guys twice my size in Taekwondo. Well, let me tell you something. I took Taekwondo and I grew up in the 90s. And you know what we said in the 90s? I street fight. It was totally popular in the 90s. Like, dude, I street fight. Because like everybody in the 90s had a black belt at one point. We're like, oh, yeah, I got a black belt. Like, most of us did not have a black belt. Most of the people saying it, they just didn't have one. They just, like, I don't know, went to like 3 classes, learned 2 katas, and then they're like, I'm a black belt. And they would tell everybody that, and they really weren't. And then the counterpoint was that, I don't do karate. I'm a street fighter. We're all full of it. By the way, I'm not physically fighting a woman. So there's that. I don't need my mama coming up out of the grave whooping my ass. And she told me when I was a young kid, she was like, if you ever hit a woman, don't come home because I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And I'm not lying. She said that. The exact words. And I have never, ever, 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 ever hit a woman. Ever. Never even raised my hand to do so. Let's see. What else? Now I got people arguing with the lady, if you throw a punch, you automatically lose the argument. Like they're arguing with each other now. That's cool. That's funny. All right, let's see what else. Yes, perfect. Keith says, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't really understand the topic. Why are you going to go embarrass me on my own show? Because if anybody remember when I was saying that I used AI to help explain words to my son, my 6-year-old? Because he would be like, Dad, what's the definition of this? You know, it'd be a word like that. I'm like, I don't know. And it's not that I didn't know what the word meant. I just didn't know how to explain it to a 6-year-old. So I'd go to AI and I'd be like, explain this word to a 6-year-old. And it would give me this explanation. I'm like, oh, that's a really good explanation. So thanks a lot, Keith, for embarrassing me on my own show. I can't even explain simple words to my son. I tease. It's all good. It's all good. All in fun. All right, folks. I think that's my show for today. Let's see. Are there any other comments? Nope, no other comments on any other socials. So we're going to head on out of here for the day. Folks, again, I want to say I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring so that you can do better, be a better person, engage with people in a better way so that ultimately, at the end of the day, the best ideas rise to the top. That's the goal. Whether you're watching me live right now or you're watching me later, please drop a comment in later with your thoughts. Did I miss anything? Do I need to offer a correction? Maybe you just want to do some more of that promiscuous praise. I'm all ears, whatever the case. But with that, I'm going to be out for today. I will see you tonight, 6:30, with Tyler Yonke. We're going to talk about that 12-year-old child, the video of that 12-year-old child getting spanked, something horrific. We're going to talk about that tonight. But until then, I'll see you guys. We're out. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and buy me a coffee, because, you know, every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.